Greetings. This is Paul the Poke from PaulthePoke.com. Today's topic, we are continuing in a series on the concept of Jubilee. And today we're going to specifically look at the idea of the deed or the grant to planet Earth and just the course of that, who originally was supposed to be in charge, who's in charge now, and where it's going is the idea. First of all, we're going to start off with Leviticus 25, verse 23. The land, moreover, shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. For you are but aliens and sojourners with me. And this is God talking. The land is his. So God transfers authority and possessions according to his own choice. He owns everything. And the point of the post is to see how God transfers authority and leadership over the earth. Now, some of this are going to be some discussions, talks about marriage or allusions to marriage in this post. And I would ask you not make assumptions in doctrine regarding marriage based on these verses. And we could talk about that on another day. But the point of marriage ultimately is that both parties, male, female, husband, wife, submit to Christ in a godly marriage. And you can get that from Ephesians 5. Take a look at Jeremiah 27, verse 5. By my great strength and outstretched arm, I made the earth and the people and animals on the face of the earth. I give it to anyone I please. If we just want to talk about pure ownership of things and stuff and people and animals and resources, etc., you can go back to the post I put up last week, Jubilee Part 4, Return to Your Land. Click on this link and we'll have, you can take a look at that article. But we'll go back to, in the beginning, God gave authority over the earth and everything in it to humanity. Now notice, authority was granted to both the man and woman equally. Authority was not given specifically to the man. And we got two verses in Genesis 1. We're going to take a look at it. Genesis 1, verse 26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them, plural them, rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Two verses later, in verse 28, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So again, in the beginning, co-heirs in authority to rule and subdue. He didn't say God said to Adam, or God said to the man, or God said to the woman, or God said to Eve. He said to them, plural. Now we do want to take a look at two verbs in these verses. They are rule and subdue. I underlined them and put them in italics in the verses above. And we're going to take just a quick word study on the word. The Hebrew word for rule is radah. It's a simple action verb, and radah means to have dominion, rule, or subjugate. The verb does not necessarily imply harshness or utilizing an iron fist or just being a tyrant. And there are plenty of examples where God instructs the use of temperament and respect. Like, for example, Leviticus 25, verse 43, you shall not rule over him with severity, but are to revere your God. So the idea is, just because you're in charge, that doesn't mean you have to have an iron fist and be a hammer. Have some temperament. Revere, respect is the idea. The second word, Hebrew word for subdue, is kabosh, and it's also a simple action verb. And kabosh means to bring into bondage, enslave, make subservient, to subdue, force, violate, or dominate, tread down. So in other words, use force if necessary. And kabosh is used in the context of conquering the land in the book of Joshua, and also in the military victories of King David. So, I mean, it's the idea between the two verbs is okay, let's use some temperament. Let's be respectful. Uh, you don't have to be harsh. However, if something is not complying, uh, you can bring the hammer if you need to. But, initially you should, go about it in a, hey, we kind of need to do this, or not, we don't kind of need to do this. We need to do this. God says we need to do this. And have an element of temperament, respect. But then, you look a little further. Um, Subdue, force, violate, dominate is the idea. So if you need to, put your thumb on it, squash it, is the idea that God uses. His words, his verbs, not mine. And I know that's very offensive to some people, um, especially that word kibosh, subdue. I mean, that's bring the hammer, dominate if necessary, force, subdue is the idea. But take it up with God. Don't bring it to my attention. I'm just reporting what it says here. He's the author. He's a big boy. He can handle it. Go talk to him about it. The leadership structure radically changed with the original sin in the Garden of Eden. And again, originally God transferred authority of the earth to the man and woman equally, humanity. A consequence of the fall in Eden is God redefined the dynamic of the relationship between the man and the woman. The woman lost her position and possession as co-ruler with the man. Genesis 3 verse 16 part B, to the woman he said, yet your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you. And again, the word is rule, it's not kibosh. uh, and that's something that could be discussed later, in regards to the context of marriage. And again, this is not about marriage, what we're looking at here. And again, for those who want to look at it, check out the verses in Ephesians 5, and you're going to find out, whereas both humanity, male and female, messed it up, humanity, male and female, husband and wife, are to submit to Christ, to get it right, to restore union between the husband and the wife. And then the ultimate expression of that's going to be humanity as the bride of Christ, or the church, and their relationship with the ultimate husband, Christ. And that will be how it should be. But back to the discussion at hand here, and we're looking at a comparison. Post fall, Genesis 3:16, to the woman he said, your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you. Now contrast that, a few chapters later in Genesis 9, God's comments to Noah after the flood: as for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply in it. There's no mention of rule and subdue anywhere in Genesis 9. And at this point, humanity's authority over the earth is lost, at least for now. So there's a clear distinction of what God intended in the beginning at creation. What happened with the fall, and then the consequence. Well, there was an initial consequence at the fall, and then to Noah in Genesis 9 coming out of the ark: be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply in it. No mention of rule and subdue. They've lost that authority. Humanity's lost that authority. And we know who's in charge right now. Again, humanity's lost authority over the earth. And we look at 1 John 5, verse 19, we know that we are from God, and the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. So Satan's in charge. And Christ even acknowledges that during his temptation with Satan. Satan says, here, just do what I say and I'll give it to you. Jesus obviously didn't, but Jesus didn't argue with the fact either that Satan was in charge at that point. And that ultimately will be part of the part of the issue during the tribulation is Christ is going to retake authority and leadership of the earth. He'll take care of evil, Satan, put him in his box, and recapture responsibility and authority for planet Earth. And the creation will no longer groan. We'll have righteousness in charge. That's the cliff notes of that story. In the beginning, humanity's co-rulers, Adam and Eve, failed to rule and subdue the earth. Leadership structure and order changed radically, for that matter. But in the end, humanity's co-rulers, Jesus and his bride, the church, will succeed, fulfill, and restore God's promise in the millennial kingdom. Now, Christ is going to do the heavy lifting on that deal. And our righteousness, our place, our authority is in him. And we rule and reign as believers because of him. And he power shares. Revelation 20, verse 6, blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. And that's exactly what's going on. Christ is sharing his authority with his believers, the bride of Christ, the church. 2 Timothy 2, verse 12, if we endure, we will also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. So again, we're looking at just the idea of the deed of planet Earth, who's in charge of it. Originally God gave it to humanity and Adam and Eve, or the man and the woman. They don't get names until, both of them don't get names until after the fall. That's a whole interesting topic. I really don't know what to make of that. She's referred to the woman until she is named Eve after the fall. I think that has to do with being the mother of humanity is what that means. But something I've thought about. I don't have any answers for it, but nonetheless, if you enjoyed this, please feel free to share with others. PaulthePoke.com. And this is part of an ongoing series under the category of Jubilee. You can scroll down here on the right side, click on Jubilee. And this is something that, this series was originally posted 6 years ago. Thought it was time to bring that up. We're arguably in the midst of a sabbatical set of 7 years. We're in the 7th year of the Shemitah year. We're a couple of months in. And historically, there are significant global events, geopolitical events, fireworks, if you will, during this 7th year of alleged rest. Now, humanity's not resting, and we're trucking on through. And those laws are given to Israel, but I would suspect at some point some of this will be reinstituted by Christ. He'll define how that's supposed to work, and we'll worry about that at that point. But if you want to sign up, type in your email address here, hit subscribe. You'll receive notification every time we put something out. And appreciate you guys taking the time to follow along and listen. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye.